Hello everyone, welcome to this session on Microsoft Fabric. So our speaker Musin Hamid has joined. He will be guiding us today about Microsoft Fabric, and we will be starting the session soon. I hope I'm audible. Musim, if you can hear me.
Yes, you are. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you are also audible.
Okay,
Yeah. I think
excellent.
we are good to go. We can start the session. So let me just introduce you. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this session on Microsoft Fabric. Today we have with us Musin Hamid, who is a three-time certified Microsoft trainer, and he is a senior BI analyst. He has good experience with BI and training. He has been a trainer himself. And today he will be guiding us about Microsoft Fabric ingestion to analysis. So welcome Musim, welcome everyone, welcome to this session.
All right. Thank you very much, Chaitanya. Did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yeah. It's Chaitanya.
Uh,
Yeah.
okay, all right. Thank you very much for this privilege to present on Microsoft Fabric. So good day, everybody on the call. Thank you so much for joining the session today. We'll be looking at Microsoft Fabric. It's a pretty new product for Microsoft. Probably we have some of us who have explored it before now, or some of us we're pretty new to that. But just so that I'm very sure of what the spread of the audience is, I would like to quickly have us respond on the chat if that is feasible. Please just type a yes on the chat if you've done anything in Fabric before. No, if not. Do we have access to the chat? Are people able to type something on the chat?
Musim,
Okay.
you can share your screen as well. Your screen is not visible.
Okay. So just to confirm, do the audience have access to the chat? Are they able to type something?
Yeah, they do have access to the chat. Everyone, please do interact with Musin, and please do write down. Please respond to this to his questions. We want to make this session more interactive, and that can be done only if you respond. So do respond to his questions.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. Okay, so I'll just proceed with this now. Hopefully, as we go on, we'll have better interaction and we'll have more people join the call. So we are looking at Microsoft Fabric today. Like I mentioned, this product was first announced sometime mid last year. And then it became generally available at the last Microsoft Ignite. So for some of us that we have not heard anything about the product or we have not explored it before, I will just use this slide here to just explain briefly what the product is about. So Microsoft Fabric, just like Microsoft started with Power BI. So for those of us that were coming from Power BI background, we'll realize that Power BI was sort of an offshoot of Excel. So Microsoft puts together certain products from which were already existing in Excel, put them together, add a bit of functionality, and then that became Power BI. So when I'm talking about the product Microsoft put together in Excel, so I would be talking about the Power Query that we already know in Excel, Power Pivot in Excel, and then those were the two major things that were put together and with some enhancement in the visualization. So that's what gave birth to Power BI. So something similar was what happened or what gave birth to Microsoft Fabric as well. So Microsoft Fabric essentially lives on three main things. So we have the Power BI that we already know. And then we have the Azure Data Factory. For those of us that were coming from Azure background, we will know Data Factory for creating our data pipelines. And then we have the Azure Synapse. analytics. So Azure Synapse, Azure Data Factory, and Microsoft Power BI. Those were the three products that Microsoft put together with a few other enhancements to bring about the Fabric experience. So when we talk about Fabric, just think about it as a unified platform that enables every single person within the data space to be able to manage whatever activities they want to do within the same software as a service product. Think about it this way. You have data engineers in your organization. You have data scientists in the organization. You have data analysts, the database administrators, every other person within the data space. For some reasons, individuals would have to use different products for what they want to do. Data engineers, they might want to use the Azure Data Factory to build their pipelines, or they're using SQL Server Integration Services, SSIS, to do their data migration. That may be what they're doing, and then they are moving the data into a central data warehouse or a SQL Server database that is on-premise or on the cloud from which the analyst will now begin to pull in the data from. So analysts will then plug into that using their Power BI or Excel, plug into that to build their report. Data scientists, they may want to pull out some data from there, use some Python script on that. So individuals before now would be using different tools to achieve what they want to achieve within the business. But now with Microsoft Fabric, every single person in the data space, they are able to sit on a single product and they are orchestrating every of their works within the same product. So data engineers, they are within Fabric. They are doing all their data migration, all their pipelines within Fabric. Data scientists are able to also build their machine learning models, do all sort of modeling within the Fabric experience, while data analysts, they are also able to do whatever they want to do when it comes to the reporting side of things within the Fabric experience. So Fabric is a very powerful product. And one of the major advantages of using Fabric is that every single thing that everyone is doing within Fabric lives on one lake. So one lake is the unified data foundation. So it is that basis which feeds data into whatever other persons are doing. So in a way, we are able to have a single version of the truth. What does that mean? So the same data that a data engineer is working with, orchestrating into a data warehouse or a lake house, as we would say, is the same data set that a data scientist will start building machine learning models on. That is the same data set that the reporting side of things, the analyst will be building their report out of. So somehow every single person within the data space within an organization would be working with the same data set. And that assures us that there are no discrepancies. So a data engineer wouldn't be claiming that we have 1 million rows records in our database, and we have the data scientist saying that probably we have he built his own model with 1,000 rows or something similar to that. So that is how the Fabric experience is. So if we want to start working with Fabric, so as of now, if we do not have the Fabric trial before this time, I'm not so sure we may be able to get it, except if we want to go the route of from a developer account. It's possible we're able to get it, or the organization is going to subscribe. So subscribe to Microsoft Fabric, layer it over the Power BI licensing. So this is not a conversation for licensing, but it is something that we can explore within the organization. So for us to start working with Fabric, we still need to go into our browser. We go to powerbi.com. I want to make this very practical so that we see what the advantage of building certain things within the Fabric experience would be, and not so that we are speaking something that is pretty vague. So now, when we get into powerbi.com, so this might ask me to sign in. Just going to do that in a minute. So for some reasons, let me see. Okay, let me use this other browser here. I think I should be signed in here. All right, so I'm signed in on this. How do we know that you have access to Fabric? One of the key things you may want to look at is this. Number one, if you look at the bottom left of your screen, you would see the Power BI icon. If I click on this Power BI icon, I'll see an option to go into Microsoft Fabric. So this tells me that I have access to Microsoft Fabric. So the same thing we could also look at the top here. It says that I have a fabric trial which expires in 59 days. So this was just extended for me yesterday or thereabout, as Microsoft had announced that it was gonna close, but somehow it was extended for me. So if we want to now, if we want to start the trial ourselves, what activate the trial ourselves, what we may want to do is to come here to our account manager here, and then we would be able to see start trial button here, depending on how that was configured from the admin level. So the admin might have deactivated that button. So if the admin had deactivated the trial version of Fabric for the tenant, individuals will not see the button here to start the trial. But if you check and you see the button, it means that the admin has enabled it at the tenant level, and then you are able to start the trial yourself. So once you click on start trial, you might get an option to just opt in, and then you're good to go. So when we now have access to Microsoft Fabric, the very first thing that we need to do to make anything that we're doing in Fabric work is to create a Fabric workspace. So the normal workspaces that we have in Power BI. So if I click on workspaces here, you'll notice that on this account, because this is a developer account, this account is not meant for production purposes. So I see that I only have my workspace, which is typical of the Power BI environment that we are used to. So the Power BI environment, you have two kinds of workspaces. It's either you're having a personal workspace, or you are having a team or a group workspace. So what does that mean? Those workspaces, they are the environment within which you manage your reporting assets, data set, the semantic model, the reports, every other thing that are related to the reports that you're building. But for Fabric, we need to create a dedicated Fabric workspace. How do we do that? Once you come here to my workspace, so let me just close a few of these tabs here. Close this. I'll close this. And then, so yeah, once you come here to workspaces, we need to come here to new workspace. Again, we might be able to create workspaces ourselves or not, depending on how the tenant has been set up. So for some organization, there are a lot of restrictions coming from the admin, which would deny you the flexibility of creating workspaces yourself. But if you are able to, you will see that button, which I just clicked on. And then once you open it, you need to give the workspace a name. You may want to give a description so that, of course, it tells you the importance of this is if you are enabling this for the organization, you are able to inform others what you intended by creating that workspace. So once you have given a name, you type in a description. Then, of course, you don't have a domain yet. So then if you come here to advanced, this is what is important. When you come here to advanced, by default, you might have the button checked on pro, which means this workspace will be a pro workspace because I'm a pro. I am on a pro license of Power BI. So the workspace is meant to be a pro workspace by default. But if you leave it to be on the pro workspace, you would not be able to use Fabric. So what you need to do is to come here to select trial. So create a trial, attach the workspace to your Fabric trial account. That's all this means. So if you read what is here, it says that new features of Microsoft Fabric for 60 days. So you need to select trial to make this work. And once you've provided all of the information, click on apply, and I will create a workspace for you. Once you have a workspace, if I go here now and I switch to Fabric workloads, so that is the workspace that I created for my Fabric activities. So now, if you look at this workspace now, you have a lot of elements here, but this will seem confusing for now. So what I would do is, for us to start doing anything in Microsoft Fabric at all, the only thing that we did for now was just to prep the environment. By prepping the environment, you need to have done two things. Number one, you have access to Fabric trial, or you have access to Fabric within your organization. Your organization has subscribed to Microsoft Fabric. And once you have one of the two, then the next thing you need to do is to now go on to create a Fabric enabled workspace. Once you have a Fabric enabled workspace, then you can come to the bottom left here. You see the Power BI icon, you click on that. And then you now go on to Microsoft Fabric. But again, is just under this, you see some shortcuts to get to certain things you want to do. But I'll just click on Microsoft Fabric so that we see what the experience is like here. So here now, these are every single thing that we can do in Fabric. So you can create a Power BI report, you can use Data Factory, Data Activator, you can do some data engineering workloads, which means you're moving data from a place to another. You can do some data science workloads, you're building some models, you can do some data warehousing, and Microsoft Fabric also enables real-time analytics, RTA. So now what we want to do for now is this. The scenario I want us to look at together is let's assume that we have a particular report that we build monthly. So we are analysts, okay? We have a particular report that we build monthly. The data is shared with us, and then we use that data, whatever data set that is shared with us, we use it to build our report monthly. What we now want to do with the Fabric experience is see how we can orchestrate the entire workflow such that we are not having to build this often. Every single time. That's what I mean. So you build this once in your Fabric environment, and whenever you have new data set, you just need to add it to wherever you've created as a data source, and then the only thing you need to do afterwards is to go to your reporting side and go and refresh, and then everything just works that way. Or alternatively, you have scheduled the refresh, and then you have your new data set uploaded, and everything flows. So that's what we need to do. So whenever you're doing anything that has to do with having to save data on a particular place, one of the first things you need to do. So I'm giving us the steps so that when we want to practice, we know the steps to take, because once you miss a step, you have to go back, or you're getting some funny errors, some unpleasant errors, and then you're not able to figure out what is happening. So now, the very first thing we want to do is to create a data engineering workspace. What does that mean? So it's not a workspace per se. It is just we now doing what is called, we want to create where our data will live on. That's essentially what we're doing. We want to create where our data set will sit on. So what this means is that I will come here to data engineering. If I click on this would open the data engineering experience, and then I'm able to see every single thing that I can do when it comes to the data engineering workloads. So now what I need for now is to create a lakehouse. When we are storing our data in Fabric, we have a few options. We could have our data stored in a lakehouse. So the lakehouse is similar to ADLS, Azure Data Lake Storage, for those of us that we are coming from Azure background. So it's similar to that in the sense that you can have data uploaded, CSV files, or you have them put into different folders. So that experience is there. The other experience you can have when it comes to you saving your data is to have your data stored in what is called a data warehouse. So you are able to create whether a data warehouse, or you are able to create a lake house to store your data within the Fabric experience. But again, before any one of these can happen, we need to create that lakehouse itself before we can move data into it. So here I'll come here to create a lakehouse first. So I'll click on lakehouse. And one of the things that I do, which is something that we should try to imbibe, is that there should be a naming convention for whatever we're doing, for whatever objects we are creating, because somehow eventually in a near future you would have so many items, so many objects in your Fabric workspace, and then it becomes difficult to trace this out. But there should be a naming convention, so that makes it easy to get to whatever objects you want to get to. What this means is that if I want to create a lake house, so I do LKH, which means this is a lake house, and then underscore, and I give it the actual name that I want to give to this lake house. So let's say this is the lake house for StyAva demo. StyAva demo. So I just leave it this way. So now, once I click on create, this will create the lakehouse. Again, it might take a few seconds before this will happen, because everything we are doing on Microsoft Fabric is online. So this is we're working on the cloud now. You're not doing anything on premise. So now our lakehouse has been created. We see here that we have the lakehouse type of a demo, and we have two major objects that can be created here. So you can create separate files, which is what I see here. Excuse me, all the files that we're creating will be saved here, or you can have different tables. You are importing different tables from different sources, and then you are bringing them into your lakehouse. So these two things can happen here. So what we will do now is this. Like I mentioned, what we're looking at is we have data coming in monthly. So we want to look at how we can upload our data here. And then we have our report connected to this and see how the data flows into the reporting end. I'm hoping that I'm able to complete this in about 20 something minutes so that we can have room for some questions. So now, the data that we work with, I'll just pull that on the screen very quickly. So if I come here to this says desktop, and then just a minute. Okay. Yeah. So now, this is the data set we are working with. So assuming that at the moment, let's assume that at the moment, we only got data for October 2015. That's what has been sent to us at the moment. So I'm going to upload this data into that particular in our lakehouse now. But what we'll do first is this, because we want to create an experience such that we have a folder that we can connect directly to, and then every other data that we're having, we are able to upload that into that particular folder. So what I will do first is to come here, and then I'm going to create a subfolder here. So this subfolder, I'll call it FLD, which means this is a folder because it's just a way to manage the naming of our objects. So I'll call this sales dump or sales data dump, something like that. So I'll create this. Once I create this subfolder, then we can now upload our first file into this. So I click on this, and then I can come here to this ellipsis and I say upload files. I get this window that opens up on the right pane. Then I come here to, there's some icon here. I click on that. It asks me to navigate to where my file is. So I can select October 2015. That's what we are uploading first. Then I click on open. Once I click on open, you get this option which you can check to say that it should overwrite the file if it exists. This might be a very useful option if you think that the data that you'll be getting might be duplicated. So maybe now this month they send October data to you. Next month might be a combination of October and November. In that wise, you might want to click on this so that it overwrites that data set. But if you're getting your data monthly, you don't necessarily need this option here. So which means every single month data that comes to you comes as separate files. So I click on upload, and this just takes some seconds to upload, depending on how strong the internet connection is. So this is uploaded here, and then I see the file here. So now that I have my file here, the very next thing I need to do is now to create, I need to create a table out of this. So what it means is this. For my data to flow from the data side, which is the lakehouse, down to the reporting side, all data has to be formatted in tables. If we have a rethink of the workflow, the cycle of how we create reports in Power BI, remember that the very first thing we do is to have our data. You do your data ingestion. When you have ingested your data, the next thing is for you to model your data. But before you can model your data must go through some transformation, and then your data is all in table format in columns and rows. So that is what we need to do here. So for us to achieve that very quickly, what I would do is to create a data flow. I want to create a data flow that connects to this folder, and then that is able to now pick in whatever files I have in the folder, perform all sort of transformation on it, and then we are able to get the table out of this. For those of us that we have used data flows before, it is the same data flows. So the data flows that we use in Power BI service is the same that works here. So what I would do at this moment is I'll come here. I want to add a data flow, so I can come here back to my Fabric workloads, which is the workspace. And within this workspace, I come here to the new button, and I say that I want to create a data flow gen 2. So once that loads up, we get to see something that is similar to a Power Query experience. So for those of us that probably we have not used data flow before, data flow is simply more like Power Query online. That is what data flow is. So it's when you're using some Microsoft products that are attached to the cloud or that run on the cloud, you get to work with data flows a lot, because that is the Power Query which is you're using to run your ETL between whatever jobs you're running on that particular tool. So our data flow has opened up now, and just obviously at the top here we see Power Query, so which means this is the usual Power Query experience. But before we go into that, I'll need to give my data flow a name. That is a very important thing that we need to always do. Your objects should have well-defined name. If your objects do not have well-defined name, you may have to go to some stress when you are trying to figure out certain things. So now I changed this. I call this data flows, DFL, and then I call this data flows for the sales. Let's say this is, I call this sales data dump, something like that. So I leave this as it is. So that is the name of the data flow. And then when we want to connect our data flow, we want to use it to extract data from that folder that we created on Lakehouse. So what I would do now is to come here to get data. And then when I get here to get data, what I would need to do is to, if I come here to more, for instance, now, so when I come here to more, we'll see all the options that we typically would see on Power Query, which means you can get data from Excel workbook, SQL Server database, and all of these options. But what the options that we need to watch out for are those that are loading up here under the One Lake Data Hub. These options that we see here, they are the options that are related to the Lakehouse and some other related items within the Fabric workspace. From these options, we'll see that we have a lakehouse that I have a demo. So that was the lakehouse that we created here. So sorry, I can't navigate back to that to show us, but that was the lakehouse that we created. So I click on this, and then once I click on this, then I should have a button that says that it's connecting to it. Yeah, so it's loading here. It's connecting to that Stayava demo lakehouse. Once this is up, it shows us a preview of what the entire things that we have within that lakehouse, which means we probably would have some tables, would have some items within certain folders. All of those will surface, and then we can point directly to what we want to connect to. This is running on the cloud, so we have to be a bit patient for it to run the jobs completely. So just a minute, I'm gonna switch this screen here. So I need to reshare my screen. Sorry, just a second. Okay. So I'll share this screen here. Okay. I believe we can see my screen now. All right. So now what I was saying is this. What we did before now, so sorry about that, was that we looked at we initiated a data flow, which we connected to the lakehouse that we created. And then when we connected to the lakehouse that we created, we then went on to, we got to this window, which now shows the items that we have within our lakehouse. So now I'll just come here to expand this. We naturally will see some queries here. As we see here, we'll see these are some system defined queries that are here. You probably don't have anything to do with that. But now this is the folder that we created, which we uploaded the first file into. So I'll click on this folder to select it. And then I'll come here to the bottom right and I say create. Okay, so we still have a bit of time. So I'll just see how we can manage this to get to this. So our data flow has connected to that folder now. So we just need to do some Power Query gymnastics and then to get our data out in the format that we want. So what we'll do is this, we see that this is showing us it's not showing the actual data that is in this file or in this folder. So what we'll need to do is, if you want to be sure of what is in this, what the column that holds that file is this content column. If I click anywhere within this cell under the content column, I would see at the bottom the actual file that he holds. So this is the actual file that is in there, which is the whatever name of the file has been converted to this, but it's a single file, so that is what is there. We need to now find a way to get to this file. So the first thing I would do is I'll take out every other column that I have here. I don't need them. So all these are just metadata. They are description of the kind of data that is there. So I'll right click on the content column, and then I say remove all the columns. So that would take out every other column that I have. Yeah, so I'm left with this content column. Then the next thing is I'll add a custom column quickly. I'll add a custom column. And then for this custom column, I would say that Excel. So this is a mquery.workbook, which is I want to extract what is currently in that is a binary file. So I want to extract the actual workbook that is sitting within that binary file. So, and then I will select, this is what I'm passing into that function, and I will do OK. So which means go into that binary file, then extract the actual workbook that is within it. This would add a new column now. And the new column that it will add should hold something that is similar to a table, but not exactly the data yet, but we'll be getting close to that. So if I click within this cell now, at the bottom here, we'll see now that we have, yeah, something similar to what we need. But again, so this content column, I no longer need it. So I'm going to delete that. I'm deleting that. Then I go on to now, from this column itself now, we can now extract what we need. So I can expand this. I use this icon here. And I click on OK. So that expands out all those items that we saw below. And if you want to be sure of where your data is, our data is actually sitting under this data column. So if I click within this table, would say that you have the actual data, which is the actual data I want to get to. So for now, I will just select these first two columns. The reason why I'm selecting the first two columns is I want to keep this first column so that when I expand out my data, I have a column that tells me what month that data is for. So now I would do a right click here and I say remove all the columns. I don't need those other ones again. And I can go on to now look at how I can now bring out this actual data. So what I would do is, if I look at what is here, if you look at the data that is here, we'll see that we don't have our actual data sitting on the column headers. So we want to do a sort of transformation quickly so that this first row becomes the header row. So I can add a custom column again. If I'm adding a custom column here, I just say that it should do table dot, so table, that spelling was wrong. And Power Query is the M language is case sensitive, promote headers, and then I pass in the data column, which is the column that holds the actual data. Then I do OK. So this adds an additional column So this, which should now hold the structure that the data is meant to be on. So we look at the previous one. So this one, the column header says column 1 down to column 10. If I click on this one would have the actual column headers that we need. So we have been able to promote our headers there. So I don't need this previous one anymore. So I'll click to delete that. And now I can expand the new one that has the way the data should be structured. So I expand this out and I click on OK. So once I click on OK, this is expanded out. So we now have the actual data the way they are supposed to be. So now one important thing that we need to keep in mind when you're working with anything, when you're trying to load data into your lakehouse, is that try as much as possible to ensure, look through your column headers, be sure that they have the correct data types. And secondly, is that you need to ensure that you don't have some unwanted characters there. If you have, your data flow might be failing, and the message might not be so direct as to that is what is causing the issue. So you might have some troubles having to figure out what exactly went wrong. Excuse me. So what we need to do quickly is I would Control A on all the column, and then I go to my transform tab and I say detect data type. So this would look through all the columns, look at the data within them, and try to identify what data types all of them are meant to be. So now it says that region is meant to be text, market, and all of these are just some Power Query stuff here. But the name column here, I want to retain this as a text column. I don't want this to be converted to a date column. So I'll take this back to a text column. So I say replace current, so that I still want to see the October 2015, that's what I want to see on that particular column. So which makes it a lot descriptive. So now the other thing quickly is I'll look at all these columns. So I will just try to take out the spaces in between the column header titles, so that I don't run into some of the issues that I mentioned earlier. So I'll do that for fiscal period. And then let me go to the line of business. Of course, you may not want to take out the space. You may want to use an underscore. So that should still be fine. But just to be on the safe side, I would just take out the spaces here. I'll go to the category. And then, so for revenue, okay, I think this has no space. Then I go to the unit sold column. So every single thing that we can do in normal Power Query, we can do all of those here. What differentiates this from the normal Power Query is, for Power Query, when you're done with your data transformation, you need to, if you are working with Power Query in Excel, you need to click close and load, or close and load to. You can load the data into an Excel workbook, or you want to load to probably different destinations. So maybe you want to load as connection, or you want to load into a pivot table, or you want to load into Power Pivot data model. All of those are possible. If you're working with Power Query in Power BI, you may want to load, you click on close and apply, so it loads your data into the Power BI engine itself. But here, because we have an option, we have options of where to load our data to. So you may want to now, you need to now select what your data destination would be. So if I go to the Home tab, so we come here to this button that says add data destination. And here we have a few options. Do you want to load this data into an Azure SQL database, which means you have an Azure SQL database provisioned that you want to pipeline this data into, or you want to load it into a lakehouse, which is what we already created. So we're going to be loading this into a lakehouse. So I can select a lakehouse here. And then now it's just going to establish connection to that. If you don't have a lakehouse already created, you'll get an option here that says that you should create your lakehouse. So then I click on next. So this is validating connection now. And once this is fully validated, so now I need to now select where I want to load. So I click on this workspace. This is the Fabric Workloads workspace. I expand this and I say that it should go into this TyAva demo. So that's where it should go to. And then I click on next. I'm running out of time. Okay.
No, not that. Not yet.
Okay.
You can take your
Okay. All
time.
right.
No worries.
Okay. All right. Thanks a lot. Okay. So now on this window, we have one of two options. So it's asking us, do we want to append the data or we want to replace the data? What this means is we are loading the data to the workspace on a particular table. Do you want to append the data, which means data might be already existing, and then whatever new data you have, you want to put it on just under, you want to stack them, or the new data that is coming, if data already exists, you want to replace it. So because here we necessarily don't have new data, we don't have an existing data, so we can say that I should replace whatever is there, so that's fine. So and then I say that I save the settings. Once I save the settings, this should confirm the destination to be valid. So now, how are we sure that the destination is valid? You see now that the button is grayed out. And at the bottom right of the screen, you see that you have selected a lakehouse as the destination. So the next thing to do is now to publish the data flow, which is a typical thing that we need to do. So I'll come here to publish. Of course, if you click on the drop down there, you have an option to either publish immediately or you want to delay publishing your data set or your data flow. Sorry. So this is publishing, and we should see it running. So let me see. So this is here. This is the style of data flow. Yeah. So it is running. It might take some seconds or up to minutes, depending on how heavy your data size is. So if your data is pretty heavy, you may need to be a bit patient for it to load. And then you need to somehow be sure that your internet is stable. Sometimes if the internet is fluctuating, this will break the data flow and then you start getting some errors. So whatever errors you're getting, if you don't have a clue yet, just make sure that your internet is stable and then you rerun it. So this says that our data flow is published already, and then the data is now refreshing, which is typical of from data flows. So remember that when you do data flows in Power BI, one of the key things you need to do almost immediately after for that data set to be available is to go see how you should refresh that data set. So this is what is currently doing, which is the icon that we see here. But while this is happening, I can go back to our lakehouse. So now on the lakehouse, if I try to refresh, if the data flow is fully refreshed, we should now see this is now the sales dump that we loaded from the data flow. So it's here now. Now that you have this, the very next thing that you may want to do is to sort of model your data. But so that this makes sense, let me just for the moment upload a data set, which also shows us how you can get in data set. It doesn't have to be through data flows. So what I will do is I'll come here. So I have a date table that I created in the CSV file. So I can come here to this and I say upload files. And then I need to navigate to where that is on the PC. So if I try to get to that, let me see if I see quick access, maybe I should see it here. Dynamic date.csv. Yeah, so I click on open. So this loads this up. Okay, then I click on upload. Yeah, so this is uploaded. And now we have a CSV file. If you want to preview it, if I click on this, this shows a preview of how the data is within the CSV file. So you have a date column here and other data attributes. So if I go back to files, one quick thing we need to do, remember, before you can model your data, all your data should be in table format. That's what led us to creating a data flow first, to picking whatever data files is in this folder and putting all of them, consolidating them into a table, which is what we see here now. So an option that we have, a feature that CSV files has when you upload them in the lakehouse, is that you can come here to this ellipsis and say that you load this directly into a table. So whatever you have in the CSV file, you can load it directly into a table and not go through any stress as such. So if your data is a static data, you don't expect it to change per se, you may want to use this option. I'm saying if it's a static data because this option would not automatically update. So if you expect that your data might be changing, it means that every single time you need to re-upload and then you need to load into tables. So, but if you expect that your data might be changing, you might be having some more records added, you may not want to upload it as CSV, create a data pipeline or you create a data flow to work the data into the tables within the lakehouse. So I'll say new table here. And then so because the table name cannot have a space, it cannot have a space. So first, because I'm naming my objects correctly, so I'll say this is a table, and then I'll come here to close this gap and then exit load. So that naming convention, I did not observe it for this. So this picked the folder name. So it is something that I should have done. So please bear that in mind. If I want to edit this now, I will need to go back to the data flow to go and edit the query name, and that would come in here. So if when this works, so this is still loading the data into a CSV. Once we get a notification that this is done fully, then we should, if I click on refresh here, then we should see the actual table that we loaded from the data flow, and then we should see the dynamic dates, so which is here now. So now that we have, assuming we have all our tables, these are all the tables that we need for our reporting purpose. The next thing that we need to do is to come here to the top right here where we say lakehouse. So we are within the lakehouse experience. So if I click on the drop down here, we can switch to the SQL Analytics endpoint experience. What does the SQL Analytics endpoint experience imply? So it is an experience that allows you to write your native SQL queries and you build out your data model. So for those of us that we have very good background in SQL and you want to explore whatever data you have in the lakehouse, you want to explore them writing some SQL queries, building out some stored procedures, building out some views and stuff, you can do that within the SQL Analytics and endpoint experience. And also if you want to build out your data model, you can also do that within this experience. So let's assume that I want to build out a query. So what I will want to do is to come here to the bottom. So this is still loading. So I can come here to the bottom here. Also, we have three views. The data view, which shows you the actual data that you have in the files. Then if I come here to query, this switches it to a notebook sort of experience where you can write your query within something similar to a Jupyter notebook experience. You can write your SQL queries here. But what we need here is the modeling experience. So I come here to the model view. And this changes to a view that looks like the model view in Power BI or the diagram view in Power BI. Remember that when we initially initiated our data flows, we saw some queries that I said they were system generated queries. So these are the queries here again. So they come in as tables and then, yeah, they are available for some things, but not necessarily something we want to use. So I'll just hide all of them. So I'll click on this to hide. I'll take this down. So this is the one we created ourselves, sales dump. So I'll take this, I'll just hide this, just the normal way we hide them tables in Power BI. I'll take this down as well. I don't need that. Then this one too, I'll hide it. Take this down. And then I think this is the dynamic date table that we created. So these are the two tables that we need. So what I would do is we need to create a relationship between these two tables. So let's say that the trade date table, trade date column is meant to be related to the date column. And so let me see, yeah, I'll do okay. Yeah, so okay, so this is connected to this now. We have trade dates connected to this, and if you want to look at some things on the data side, you can click on each of the column and then you see the properties here. So I just want to get quickly to the reporting experience. So assuming that we are done with our modeling, then you want to create your report. So you come here to the top, this new report. Once I click on that, that would open up the reporting experience, which is more like you have a report on the service. So this says there's an error, the operation is not allowed because the data types of this is not the same as this. Okay, so there's a data type issue between the keys that I'm using. So if I come here, so this date column has a text format, but unfortunately we'll not be able to change that from here. So it has to be from the file itself. But let me look at the data type for this. So if I click on this one, the data type is the date format, so which is pretty good. So for us to be able to manage this, what we may want to do is to go and address the data type from the source again and then re-upload the file, reload it into the lakehouse. Another option is to, instead of having to upload the CSV file and then do create a table from this, we can actually use the data flow to bring it in so that we can manage the data types much correctly. But as this is related, this would not allow us to proceed until we fix that. But I don't want that to delay us. So I'm just gonna break that relationship and then I go to the new reporting experience. Yeah. So we are here now in this is more like the Power BI interface that we're used to. Yeah. And then here we will need to now do a few things. So let's say I won't be able to do cross reporting on both tables because they are not related. But let me just add a card visual here so that we have an experience of how this works. So if I add the revenue column here, so this says our revenue here is 4 billion. So if I want to be very specific, I can come here and then for the value, I say that should display just how it display the entire numbers. Okay, so this is the full number. This is the summation of our revenue column. So where this gets interesting is now we have been able to create the entire data pipeline, how our data will move into the lakehouse. Our model has been created, and then this is the reporting side. So where this gets interesting is this. So if I save this now, and I call this RPT underscore style over demo, and I save this in my Fabric workspace. Then I can go back to my lakehouse. So let me see. I think this should be it. Yeah. So when I come back to my lakehouse, in this particular folder now, where we have as our dump, so what I will do is I will upload another file here. This is for October. So let's go on to upload the file for November. So I go here, I'll come here, I'll upload the file for November. So IT downloads here. I think it's this. Okay, so November 2015, I'll upload that open. And then I'll upload. So this is an assumption that we are in a new month and then we have gotten this new file and we want to update our report. So I've just uploaded the 2015, the November data. This is October data. What I will need to do now is to go to my Fabric workload. I'll need to go and refresh my data flow. So if I come here to where's that data flow, style Ava demo data flow, let me see. If I try to refresh this, so let me see where it is. So this is report demo. So if I search for DFL, sales data dump, was it this one? 11:46 a.m. So it should be this. So I didn't call it Style. So it should be this one. So all other ones, they were before the session started. So now this one here, I can now refresh this. I'll refresh the data in this data flow. So it's refreshing at the moment. Once it's done refreshing, we'll get a message that it's done refreshing. So while it refreshes, what it does is it establishes connection back to the subfolder that we created in Lakehouse, perform all those transformations that we did within the data flow engine, and then we should now have an output that goes into the table that we have in our Lakehouse that we have modeled, and then we have our report connected to. So like I mentioned earlier, the refresh time is dependent on how large the data set is. So if you have a pretty large data, you may have to wait a bit before your data is fully refreshed. So this looks like it's fully refreshed now. It took about a minute or thereabout. Then if I go back to the modeling experience, that's the SQL analytics endpoint. here. Okay, so we are back here. We can quickly confirm that our data is here. So if I come here to the data view, here on the sales dump, remember that we added this column in the data flow, wherein we said it should hold the month that we uploaded this. So this is October 2015. If I try to sort this, let's say we now have November 2015 here. So which means our data has been brought into this already. So what I would do now is to go back to our report. I'll come back to the report, and then here on the report, we just need to, so our number is refreshed. So now, before now, our number was 4 billion or thereabout, and now we have 8.5 billion per se. So this is how we can automate our reporting within the Fabric experience. Just to summarize everything that we have done so far, no, the first thing is to define how you want to hold your data. But before then, if you're new to Fabric, you have not laid your hands on it first, you need to get a Microsoft Developer account so that you can enable the Fabric trial. If you're in an organization that they already have the Fabric subscription, that makes a lot of sense. After that, you need to now create a workspace, a Fabric enabled workspace. Once you create a Fabric enabled workspace, you can begin to now build your jobs. So the first thing you will do after that is to create a lakehouse. So you have created a lakehouse that will hold your data. So when you create the lakehouse that holds your data, you need to make a decision. Do you want to have all your data uploaded in folders, and then you create a data flow out of that? Or you want to have your data in different tables uploaded, probably using data flow. So you're creating a pipeline. And once that happens, then the next thing is to create a data model, and then you can go on to your report. Somebody would want to ask, what if I want to create some measures, some calculations that would feed into my report? You can do that on the reporting side. If I go to the reporting side for the moment, now that we've created our report, if you want to go back to the edit mode, you need to click on this edit button. And now we are back in the edit mode. So the typical experience in Power BI that you can right click on a column on the table name, and then you see an option to create new measures or new columns. You can have that experience here. So what you want to do is you come back to the SQL Analytics endpoint. That's the modeling experience. And then when you are here, on top of any table, so if I go to the model view, for instance, on top of any table that you want, you click on the table, and then you see an option for new measure. So you can click on new measure, and then you now have the formula bar active. You write your measure, let's say total revenue, and then you see this is the sum of the revenue column. I hit enter. So you may want to add some level of formatting, the way you want your number to be. So this is formatted as O number. I click on the drop down. So I can say that, let me say, so there should be, where is it? You should have some options to say that you want to make this comma separated or something. Not sure why it's not here. Anyways, so that's how you can get to create your measures. So you can go on to create all your measures like this. You need to click on the table you want to save it in first, and then you have all your measures within that table. Somebody want to ask again, what if that experience in Power BI that you can create a table that holds all your measures? So what you may want to do in that instance is to have upload an empty CSV file, convert that to table. You will see that table here, and then you click on that table. Is within that table you now add all your measures. I think this is a good place to stop. I've overshot my time by 2 minutes. I don't know if you have a few questions before we call it a day.
No worries about that. For 2 minutes, you can take your time. It's okay. And if anyone has any questions, then feel free to ask. This is the time right now. You can ask your questions from Museem. Anything any related to Power BI or anything you didn't get in the session, feel free to ask in the chat box. We will be having him for another 2 minutes so he can answer your questions. So just feel free to ask the questions. So, how was the session? Do mention that in the chat box. I hope you have the access for the chat. I think you should have it. Just feel free to mention how was the session, any feedback you think that we should work on, anything. Just feel free to write down in the chat box. So, yeah, here's the one question. Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Musim, everyone liked the session, including me. Everyone thinks that the session was awesome. Yeah, so there's one question. Can we interpret machine learning algorithms towards the data here?
If I got your question correctly, so maybe what you're saying is, can you build machine learning models within the Fabric experience? Yes, you can. So when you start your Fabric, so if I go back to our workspaces, if I go back to the workspaces here, okay, let me just go back to home. And we go as though we want to get back to the Fabric experience to initiate everything. So we see that the two sides that we have only explored here is the data engineering side, which moves our data, and then the reporting side. So that's how we have experienced, or we have seen in this demo. So we have also the Synapse data science side, which enables you to build machine learning models. So you might be writing some PySpark, you might be writing some SQL queries, doing some stuff within the data science side of things as well. So there are quite a bit that we can do. So if you're thinking around on building some machine learning models, of course, you need to switch to the Synapse data science environment, and then you can build all your workloads there. But that's data science is not my own core. It's not something that I've tried per se when it comes to Fabric. So it might be something that you want to explore. Yeah. All right. Any other question?
Yeah, any other question, just feel free to ask. Otherwise, we will call it a day. We are here for the next another 2 minutes. And if you have any questions, just feel free to ask Musin. And the recording for today's session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. I'll be sharing the link soon. And for the certificate of attendance for today's session, I'm sharing a form with you. Just make sure you fill out this form, and then you will get the certificate for attending today's session. Yeah, so I'm sharing the form soon. I'll share the form. Just make sure you fill it. Okay, thank you. So, Musin, I don't think. Okay, so there's one question uh, to this class. Is it possible to create user access to specific pages on Power BI reports? So there's one
Is it
question. Yeah,
possible? Okay.
yeah.
Is it possible to create user access to specific pages on Power BI reports? So if I would want to attempt to answer that, so what I'm thinking is, let's say that you have 10 pages of report, and on the 10 pages you have maybe one first 3 pages you want it to be visible to what's it called, to maybe the operations team. Pages 4, 5, 6, you want it to be visible to the finance team. It's not something that I've explored, but I'm guessing. So there is the concept of object level security. So row level security would not work for that per se. So, but there is a concept of object level security. Maybe exploring that might want to give you access to that, because that way within the object level security you might be able to open or close certain visuals for different roles. So unlike the row level security, where what you're doing essentially is you are limiting the data. So it's not that people are not viewing it, but people are only viewing the records that pertain to certain roles within for whatever department or whatever business entity they belong to. So object level security, maybe exploring that, might want to do something around that. Yeah, but I know definitely row level security will not achieve that for you. Yeah.
Cool. So I think, yeah, if there's any other question, then just feel free to ask. Uh, Otherwise, we will call it off a day. Very good answer. Very informative webinar. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, like I said, everyone liked this session. Thank you, Musin. Yeah, so I think we can call it off a day since there's no more questions. And yeah, so thank you so much, Musin. Thank you so much for taking your time in guiding us about Microsoft Fabric. I'm sure everyone liked the session. You can see it in the chat box. And we look forward to have you in the upcoming session as well.
All right.
And yeah, like
Thank
to
you.
collaborate
Thank you
with
too.
you more, Musin. Yeah. So do share, do connect with Musin on LinkedIn, and you can ask the doubts from him anytime. And yeah, do connect with Musin on LinkedIn.
All right. So I'm just trying to see if I'll be able to share my LinkedIn URL on the chat. Uh, and I think you have a question on the chat. Where will the form be sent?
Yeah, sending the form in the chat box only. You can fill this form, and then you will be getting the certificate once you fill this form. So this is the this is the form. And yeah, so let me just share my screen as well. Yeah, thank you once again, Musin. Thank you for taking your time, and we look forward to have you in the upcoming session as well. And the record yeah, so recording for today's session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. Let me just share that link as well.
All right. Thank you very much. I will be dropping off now.
Yeah, thank you, you can drop off, Musim.
Okay.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you too. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Yeah, so I have shared the link of the community as well as our Discord channel, and as well as our YouTube channel. The recording for today's session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. And Musin has shared his LinkedIn with us. You can connect with him. You can ask doubts with him from on LinkedIn. And if you have any questions regarding our community or anything you would like to suggest regarding our upcoming event or anything, then you can drop it in the chat box, as well as you can fill out the feedback form. You can do mention your feedback about this session, and do mention anything that you want to be covered in the upcoming sessions. Yeah, so yeah, you can join our community. If you haven't joined, you can scan this QR code. uh, you can join us on Discord. If you are not on Discord, then you can join us on WhatsApp. Thank you so much once again, everyone. Thanks for joining. We look forward to have you all in the upcoming sessions as well.